Evening. We have a lot to cover tonight. We've run out of time. First, let me say thank you for the invitation to be here in your beautiful country. Finally met some Krugers, and you don't pronounce it right. There will be an essay coming out sometime. It was supposed to be last summer, but I think it'll be out. Well, it was supposed to be this fall, but it's going to be in a journal dedicated to Professor James B. Torrance. And I think it's going to be a book, but they asked some of his former students if we would write essays. So I wrote one, and it's called God in the Hands of Angry Sinners. And some of what we talked about last night is in that essay. So, and it'll be free. You can Google it. It'll be on our website. I'm sure Craig will have it. We'll probably end up with a website here. But I just wanted you to know that some of the conversations we've had, some people wanted to pick up on that, because what is going on in my journey, in my life, is a very definite reversal of the view of atonement that I grew up with. And so what we have, I believe, screaming at us in the New Testament is not God needing to be pacified, but the Father, Son, and Spirit finding a way to get inside our darkness. And Jesus submitting himself to us so that he can share his eyes with us and his heart with us. Because he has no interest in sharing information. I mean, that's purely a Greek idea of knowing, the exchange of thoughts. This is about Jesus himself coming to dwell within us, and so that we can taste and feel and experience all that he tastes and feels and experiences. In fact, let me begin tonight with just a couple of stories that may seem to be disconnected, and they may be, but I think the Lord wants me to tell them, and I think we'll probably see the interconnections. Probably Jesus, since in him all things are connected. When my son was about 7, he's 27 now, so it's about 20 years ago, I was really grappling with this, all of this that we've been talking about. I knew from my mother's womb that union with Jesus and his union with us was the heart of everything. But understanding how and what that meant and how that was and how that works in our lives is an entirely different question. And I look back now on my life and I can see how that has been the question, or the family of questions, that the Lord gave to me very early on in my life. And I think I shared, I don't remember what meeting it was, but if my mother was here, she would tell you that he was born wrestling with this. But my son was about 6 or 7 years old, and I was sitting in the den on a Saturday afternoon, sorting through junk mail, getting ready to watch a football match. And out of the corner of my eye, did I tell you this story? I did? Okay, well, that's good. We got one down then. But that rocked my world, because I suddenly understand that this is about the sharing, Jesus sharing his inner world with us so that we can see what he sees. Second story I want to tell is about my dog, who has now graduated to the cloud of witnesses.
Sorry, I missed something. What did you see?
Oh, you weren't here last night. Was that Sunday?
Sunday, yes.
See, I'm not the only one that's all running together on. I will retell the story so that those of you didn't, because it's very important. In some ways, it's the best of all stories that the Lord has given to me. In fact, I was speaking one time in the northeast of the United States, and the preacher, he said, Baxter, you know the story about your son and his buddy in the den? I said, yeah. He said, you can't tell that story. I said, why not? And he said, well, I told it. I said, well, you didn't tell him it was my story? He said, oh, no, this happened in Philadelphia. And then he said, you know the story when you were lost in New Orleans? I said, yeah. And he said, you can't tell that one either. I said, I'm going to write a book of stories. I've got just a beautiful series of stories that the Lord has given to me over the year that fit right in. It's the way he's communicated with me. It's like he's taught me in my mind, and then he gives me these stories where it goes, oh. So anyway, I'll tell it again. And if I come back next year, I'm going to tell it again.
You do that.
I will, because you are probably like me, and we need to hear it a bunch of times. And it's multi-layered. There's a lot going on in this. But my son and his buddy, I saw this movement out of the corner of my eye, and I looked up and looked over here, and there were two camouflage faces and camouflage hats down at the floor. I can't get down that low anymore. I moan when I would get back up. Anyway, they looked, and I saw this movement, and I'm sitting on the couch, and all of a sudden there's two, it looked like two cannonballs flying through the air, camouflage, screaming right at me, my son and his buddy. And they had on their camouflage shirts and pants, and they had on their plastic guns and their grenades, and what they didn't have, they were faking like they did have. And we ended up in this mock battle in the middle of my floor, explosions going off, and they were on the attack. And I died 3 or 4 times and got resurrected back in the fight. And then after about 10 minutes, I was really exhausted. And we ended up in this wad, a pile of laughter right in the middle of the den floor. And in the midst of that, I just got this impression. Well, it was more than an impression. It was a word. And it said, Baxter, pay attention. This is important. And I'm like, and? And I didn't get an and. It's just, this is important, pay attention. So I started thinking about what had happened. And I thought, well, what is extraordinary about that? It's a Saturday afternoon. Dad's on the couch sorting through junk mail, getting ready to watch a football game. Now, that has to be happening all over the world in one form or another. And my son and his buddy come flying through the air, and we horse around on the den floor. And I just simply did not even conceive of what was so important about this. And then my first clue was the fact that I didn't know this other little boy. In fact, I had never laid eyes on him. I didn't know who he was, and he didn't know who I was. And then my second clue, I was thinking, what if my son wasn't there? The last thing in the world this little boy is going to do is look over and see me in the den and by himself come flying through the air, because he would have not known how I would respond, because he doesn't know me, doesn't know my heart. And so the last thing in the world he's going to do is engage me in that kind of familiarity. So the second clue came when I realized that my son was there. And he knows me. And he knows my heart. And he knows that I not only love him in some sort of generic fatherly way for a son, he knows that I like him. And that I want him. And I want to be with him. I want him to be with me. And he's free to be right here. And in the freedom of his knowledge in my heart, he did the most natural thing in the world, which is fly through the air and engage his papa in play. And I sat there and I watched my son's knowledge of my heart. My son's knowledge of my heart and of my love go inside that other little boy. And he got to taste it and feel it and experience it, just like my son did. You see that? Now, that is the gospel. And that is not something that is going to happen one day. That is what is going on planet Earth right now. When Jesus says, I am the light of the cosmos, he doesn't say, I am the light of the Christians. He says, I am the light of everything. The light of the cosmos. The one who follows me. The one who says, Jesus, will you help me see what you see the way you see it? That one, Jesus says, will never, and it's emphatic in the text, never, ever walk in not darkness, but the darkness, but shall have the light of life. Now, those statements in John's gospel, those I am statements, and they're more than just 7, but the 7 that are typically highlighted are pretty strong. Those are not invitations. They are bold, direct declarations. I am the light. I am the reason this is here. I am what this is about. And it's going on right now, whether you know it or not, whether you believe it or not. In the first instance, the whole Christian thing is not about what you believe. It's about what is right here in this relationship and how we've been included into it. And the Holy Spirit, is it Windeline? Is that what? The Holy Spirit's got a huge bottle of Windeline rummaging around on the inside of your heart, squirting, trying to clear away the eyes of your heart so that you can begin to see who you are and what is actually already going on in your life right now. whether you see it or not, because you are the other little boy. Jesus has done this. He's awakening us all over planet Earth to this. But we live in a world where we have been taught, and I love the fact that somebody keeps moving God further and further out of this picture. That's beautiful. That's what Jesus wants us to do, is to see his Father with him and bid this thing goodbye. In every dimension of our being, every fear, every anxiety, to bid this thing goodbye, because this thing only exists in Adam's imagination, which he has handed on to us. It's only an imaginary deity. It's not real, it doesn't have teeth, but it sure scares the you-know-what out of us. We live in a world where this God is there watching us, and we're separated. And that's the note that is sounded across the world. Separation, 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 separation. I was taught that as if it was normal as sunshine. And it may be normal, but it's not New Testament. It's not apostolic. It's not the early church. It may be normal to you. It certainly was to me. I heard it every day of my life. And right now, this very moment, if you were back in the Bible Belt and you turned the radio on and you started surfing stations, you're going to hear some preacher telling you that you need to receive Jesus into your life. And that's not the gospel. The gospel's not the news that you need to receive Jesus into your life. The gospel's the news that Jesus Christ has received you into his life. And he's saying to you right now, wake up. This is what's real, and you're going to see it. And the reason you're going to see it is because it's the truth. And this person right here, the Holy Spirit, is passionate about light and giving you eyes to see what is. And that is what is happening. The foundations of our whole mythological world that we've inherited, and some of us have spent our life defending, is shaking. And it's going to disappear in the light of this. Second story I wanted to tell you quickly is about my dog Nessie. Or, as I said, she's graduated. She's now shepherding in heaven. You know, there are horses in heaven in the book of Revelation, just so you know. So anybody that thinks that our animals are excluded from the love of the Father, Son, and Spirit, we have a special saying for them in the South. It's bless their hearts. Our dog Nessie, my youngest daughter Catherine is 21 now, and our dog Nessie died 2 years ago when she was 16 years old. And at the service that we were going to have for Nessie out in our backyard, and I thought I'd say a few words, and none of us could speak. And Catherine said later, she said, Dad, I don't remember being alive without Nessie. It was just a loss of a dear family member. So when our kids started going to school, Nessie would go out in our backyard and she would roll over on her back, and just her feet were like this, like, I have no purpose to live anymore. I am a shepherd and my sheep are gone. I mean, seriously, I could see the fact that she really was a shepherd. That's what she did. And when the kids were there, she had a purpose. And when they were gone, she'd just go out in the backyard and she'd just get depressed. And my office at the time was in the house, and so I'd get up and go get coffee, and I'd see Nessie laying out. And I thought, wow, man. So one day I had this brilliant idea that I was going to take Nessie when I was running errands in my Trooper, which is an SUV. And so I called her in, and she comes running in, and we go, and she jumps into the Trooper. And I haven't even cranked it before she starts shaking, violently shaking. Not just like, it was like convulsing almost. First, I thought maybe she was having a seizure or something. And I said, Nessie, it's going to be fine, baby. I said, we're just running some errands. I just wanted to get you out of the house, change of pace, change of scenery. This is for you, And so I go and get gas, and Nessie's just like this. And then I go to the cleaners, and I get back in, and she's just like this. And the whole time we were gone, all the stops and everything, she just shook and shook and shook and shook and shook. And I would rub her neck, rub her ears, and I said, Nessie, what is wrong? This is supposed to be good. And I couldn't figure out what was happening. And our driveway is on an incline, and when we turned and hit that incline, she looked up at me like, what? We're not going to the vet? And in that little shepherding that she was doing for me, there was a flash of great light that said, you know, Baxter, how many hours and days and months and years have you lived your life in fear of something that's not real and is never going to be real? I'm thinking, oh my goodness, what a